The idea behind this video is to start converting the old Groovy scripts to Kotlin scripts and introduce a version catalog. If you remember from the previous video, I submitted a version to Google Play, but due to outdated actions in the CI/CD, that failed, and I said I'm gonna fix it offline. So before we start doing anything, I'm gonna walk you through the changes that I've made in the CI/CD. Now the application is updated on Google Play, and there are no warnings, no errors, everything is in order. What's different here in this deployment script, this one also is running the UI tests, and it runs them by utilizing Firebase Test Lab. If you want to learn more about Firebase Test Lab and how I'm utilizing the CI/CD to run UI tests, let me know in the comments, and I'm gonna make dedicated video to explain everything in detail. So for now, what's important is to outline here. So the tests are running, and in parallel, I'm making two APKs, the regular APK, assemble debug, and one more assemble debug Android test. So there are two APKs, regular one and one for testing, so that it can execute the UI tests. And then it utilizes Firebase to deploy those two and to run the tests. So this is the command that run the UI tests. And then depending on the results, if Firebase succeeds, it's going to distribute. The changes that I had to make were updating some of these actions, the versions. So it was v3 here for the checkout, for example, or for setup Java. I had to change it to v4. Also the upload artifact, it was v3, change it to v4, and also the download artifact from v3 to v4, and that caused a change, or a little bit more significant change, in the gcloud command, because these paths were different before. Now it has to, it needs the entire path where these APKs are going to be located. That was the change. And also I had to change the device previously. So this here describes what device these UI tests are going to be executed on. I was using Pixel 3 before with API level 28, if I'm not mistaken. And here it is going to use now Pixel 8 with version 35. Lastly, what I changed here was that previously it was deploying to alpha, and now I changed it to internal and completed, so that the APK is going to be deployed to, or AAB actually, in this case it's a bundle, it's going to be deployed to internal, and from there I can decide where do I want to promote it further. As I said, if you want more details about the Firebase Test Lab, how I'm setting it up here, let me know in the comments below so I can make a specific video for that. And for now, let's proceed with the conversion. So we would like to convert these Gradle scripts, which are old, to Kotlin scripts. And the approach that I'm going to take now is I'm going to start from outside, working inwards. I'm going to start with the settings.gradle. And basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this from settings.gradle. I'm just going to add KTS here at the end, a refactor. And that should work. So if I sync the project, it should work. However, the problem here is that this include couldn't work. This is Groovy notation. So I have to put this into brackets like that, and also use the double quote here. And now if I try, it should work. Additionally, what has to happen here is in the new projects, in the newer projects, here we have to define plugin management and dependency resolution management. So we define from where the plugins are going to be loaded and the dependencies are going to be loaded, usually Google servers or Maven servers, and this is how it should look like. So in the plugin management, we define repositories, dependency resolution management, again, those repositories, and that should be it. Now, additionally here, what I'm going to add is I'll enable a feature preview that will allow me to access projects in a type-safe way, and we'll see how and why it is important later on, but for now, I'm just going to enable that. So it is enable feature preview, and then here it should be type safe project accessors. Think now why it is failing is because this Gradle script, the build.gradle, defines repositories for all the projects. So it was there in the in the traditional way of doing the things, it was in this file defining those things, but now they moved into the settings Gradle, so they are defined here and here, and in that sense we can completely remove this block. And if I try again, everything should work now. All right, so far so good. If you do like exercises and challenges related to Android development so that you win some prizes, find a link below this video and join our Android devs community. As of the challenge of this video, stay till the end and you'll be able to participate into it. See you there. Now here in this build.gradle, before we convert it to KTS, it's important to understand that here we have to define the plugins. But there are, like, for example, now the Gradle plugin is here, then some versions are here. So it would be nice to already start introducing the version catalog so I can move them there. In this Gradle folder, I'm going to create a new file, lists versions toml. Now inside the toml file, I can define versions. As you can see, the autocomplete works, libraries, bundles, and plugins. I can start with the plugins. And if I look into here, because I want to keep the same versions, like I'm going to try to keep as much as possible the same. And then I'm going to be updating the versions later. So for now, I'm just rearranging the things to make the things work. I'm gonna put here Android Gradle plugin version, and then I'm gonna also take these and apply them here. Beware that these single quotes might be problematic, so I would like to change them to double quotes. Then I can move on to the plugins. I have to define the plugins. So I need the Android application plugin, library, Kotlin Android, and here I think if I open this one, we need also the parcelize plugin. Now that I have the plugins, it already tells me that there is a newer version. This is important not to get into this and change them. So do one thing at a time. First, let's do the rearrangement, then we're going to do the update. So far, so good. Libraries and bundles, we're going to define later. So what I'm gonna do now is I'll try to sync. The sync should work, everything should work because I just added things in the TOML. I didn't change anything else. And now I can start using these things. For this file here, I'm also going to first rename. I'm just gonna add KTS. And here, I'll just comment out this quickly because what has to happen now in this file, instead of defining the build script, I just have to define the plugins. And I'm going to take these plugins from here. That's how it should be. These ones are being used probably in the project related script. Try to sync, and I expect an error there. What I'm gonna do quickly to fix it, it's a quick fix here. I'm just gonna define this. Kotlin version is probably not used, so I don't need that maybe. Let me try again. That should work. So we're gonna focus on this script just in a bit. Let's go back. So this should work, and in that sense, I can already remove this block here. Now I only have the plugins, and that should still work. We are good to go. So this one is complete. This one is also complete. Now we can focus on the project related script and the version catalog. So far, so good. As a quick check, what we could do is maybe we can just run the unit tests because they should run faster, just to make sure we are not breaking anything. But we're gonna run both tests just in a bit. And now we can approach changing this script. So before I go ahead, so far what I was doing, like I would do some changes or directly rename. Before I rename this one, I'm gonna try to convert to as much Kotlin as possible. Then I'm gonna rename so that I'm gonna have less things to think about and to change later on. So plugins, I think we can borrow from here. This should work if I think. So I'm gonna go one thing at a time. Then here for the namespace, I have to use equals and then use double quotes. For compile SDK, I have to also use equals. This should work. And maybe now that I'm here, I'm gonna move these versions also to the version catalog and they're gonna come from there. I'm gonna go here, min SDK version is 24. And I'm gonna also put here the Java version. And now that I have the versions here, I can sync and then I can load the versions from the version catalog. Why this is important? It's important that, as we are gonna see just in a bit, when we introduce, let's say, a another module, we can leverage the version catalog to use to get the versions from there. And in that sense, if I change here, it's gonna reflect everywhere in all the modules instead of like, so I'm minimizing the possibility to make a mistake. So here I can say libs versions, this is the target, get to integer. It's important to also mention that in the TOML, we couldn't have integers. It must be string. And in that sense here, I have to convert this to integer. Now, if I take this line, I can apply here, and this one has to change to min instead. This is good, but yeah, here I have to use equals everywhere. It's important to notice here also that it is no longer min SDK version. It's just min SDK. And target SDK version, also it's target SDK. So it should be like that. Version code 1, version name 1. Also for the test runner, we should use equals. So I think that should be it. Minify enabled. So this one should be is minify enabled. Then progress files, we should run this into parentheses. We're gonna move this to a new line, and this one should be also in quotes. Now compile options, they should also be equals. And what else I can do? I can load the Java version from the catalog. I'll have to change that when I convert this to Kotlin, but for now I can say def, and then here I can say to version, and I can use this here as well. Compose should be equal to Kotlin compiler extension version. Test options, unit tests. I will take this is returning default values equals true, and then all, and I'm gonna take this inside. Here I will say tests, then I'm gonna say tests use JUnit platform, and tests test login events, and then for the events I need to wrap this again into parentheses, and I think that's enough. I don't need these other ones. This is something important. We're going to look into this later, but for now, we just need to make it work. The idea with the sources set or source sets is that here we have a folder called shared tests. And then here we define some test doubles, as you can see. And these test doubles are being used in both Android test and this test. And because this is a deprecated way of doing the things, what we'll need to do is we can create an extra module here that will wrap these things inside. And then we can use that module in Android tests and in tests here. And it will supply those things. But before we do that, so one thing at a time, let's change this one here. It should be something like get by name test, and then here Java source directory, and then here I can apply, I'm gonna take this thing here, and then I'll apply it here, and I should replicate the same for Android test. So this is how it should be, I think, but this should be val in Kotlin. Then packaging options, I think it should be packaging only. So first of all, this one should be with quotes. Then instead of array here, we have to replicate the line. Then we have the dependencies. We have defs, it should be vals later, but this is important here. So I'm gonna change this to quote, then these two also. That's it. And then what I need to do is I have to wrap this into parentheses too. And now we are ready. So if I think now, I think it's not gonna work because of some of these things, like because I'm assigning properties. So what I'm gonna do is I'll directly now change this to the KTS and refactor. And now if I try again, it's not going to work now because of the def at some places. So it should be val here. This should be val. And also this one should be val. And let's try now. And then in Kotlin, it is not to integer, it is to int to convert the string to integer. And hopefully this is gonna work. Yeah, I forgot. You see, I missed to convert these ones also into double quotes. And boom, hopefully. And now I can run the tests and see if everything is in place. It should be. And what we can focus on next is the thing that I have said about the sources set to actually introduce that module. Well, let me first, so the unit tests are working fine. Let me try also the UI tests. And if they are also working, then we're going to make a commit first, so that we have that checkpoint that we can roll back to. As we can see, they are running. It's so satisfying to see them running. I do like this a lot. Okay, while the tests are running, I'm gonna make this commit. Okay, this is important. The fact that I've renamed the script. Let's go back to Studio. So here we have something that does version bump. And this version bump is using an action that actually finds the Gradle path. So where is the script? And then it changes the version code. And it was previously build.gradle, but now that I renamed it to KTS, it also changed it here, which is awesome. So this could have been a very subtle bug that I would have maybe missed if Android Studio didn't do the job properly. So this is perfect. That's why always, like when you could, use the tooling that is provided from Studio rather than you doing the things manually. So this is awesome. I'm so glad that this happened. So far, so good, actually. Now what we can do is, I want to introduce that shared module that we can utilize for the tests. And then we can focus on migrating these ones to the version catalog. So what I'm gonna do here is I'll introduce a new module, and this module has to be Android library. I'm gonna call this test utils. The folder is gonna be the same that I used to have before, because I think inside here, let me cancel so I can show you what I mean. Here, the shared already has the same package. So I want to use the same package actually for the module, because then I can just literally drag the things and I don't have to change anything. So module, I can leave the rest because I'm gonna change other things manually. Now what's important is to first clean up a little bit, because this is gonna be for test utilities. And in that sense, it doesn't need to have any folders, but I like Android test or test, but I couldn't delete them from Android Studio directly, so I have to delete them this way. Also, I don't need manifest in here. So I'm gonna change the build script first. And again, here, I'm gonna use limps versions target get to int. And as you can see, this is why I wanted to move everything in the version catalog. So now that I have multiple modules, or if I create even more, I'm gonna have a central place to change these versions rather than, making a mistake of like, if I leave 24 here, change somewhere to 26, then I may end up, in some problems. This is gonna be the minimum. Then the rest looks good. I want to have this separated like that. Then I'm gonna take Java version and take this and put it here. Now what happens when you create a module in Android Studio, it adds by itself a bunch of things inside the toml. So if I open the changelog, as you can see, it added the test utils in the settings, that's good, but it also in the Gradle, you see it added a bunch of things that I don't really need. Like I don't need them for now, so I'm gonna remove those changes. In the test utils now, you couldn't find them, but I don't need any of these for now. What I need is to be able to, these things, I want to move them there. And when I move them there, the problem is that, for example, this one is deriving from post catalog, which exists inside my domain, which is part of my app. So to be able to access that, this test utils needs to know about the app. So here I'm going to do implementation. If you remember, we said that I'm going to enable feature preview, type safe project accessor. So this line allows me to actually here say projects.app. And that's amazing. That's why I did it. And now that this module knows about the app, I'm going to sync. And then I can move the things that were inside the shared in there. This is the error that I'm trying to get rid of, this warning. It says duplicate content root detected. That's actually the problem that we are having with this block here, and we are trying to eliminate. Now what happens is that I can move this there. So I'll just literally move them this way, refactor. And because the test utils knows about the app, it knows about the types. So here, everything will keep compiling just fine, but it appears unused. Maybe you're thinking, yeah, but you are making circular dependency. Well, no, because the test utils is using the app. So it uses implementation here. So it does implementation, but in the application build.gradle here, we're going to use Android test implementation and test implementation. So we're not making circular dependency. So here we can say Android test implementation is going to take the projects test utils, and also the test implementation is going to take projects test utils. So then both of them, Android test and test implementation, will be able to read from the test utils or use those test doubles that belong there. And I no longer need this thing here. So I can basically for now comment it out, sync, and then my tests should remain working. And let's try that out. So first I'm going to run the unit tests. They work. And then I'm going to run my UI tests, and they should also work. And if, like, when I have the proof that they work, I'll get rid of this block here. And in that sense, the project is going to get much cleaner. So it fails. And the problem is, as you can see here, it says I couldn't find r.string.friends, which is a string that belongs in my strings. And it was working so far just fine. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is that this r is imported from nl jovmeetfriends.r. But we have the same package in both app and test utils. If you remember, we used the same package here. So how can I fix this? Actually, here I can say the namespace is going to be, let's say, test utils. And sync now. This is only for tests, so it doesn't really matter much. And this should be only used for the tests. Let's run now. They should work. So as you can see, the tests are working. Now I can make one more commit, but before that, I'll go to my script, delete this. I have to sync again, of course. And additionally, what I can do is now this thing and this thing, they can be also provided from the test utils. So like the test utils can provide them through API. All right, so I moved all the dependencies to the version catalog. I found it a bit boring, so I did it off camera, but I'm gonna walk you through and tell you exactly what I've done so that we can proceed towards the challenge. So before we do the challenge or announce the challenge, let's see what I've done. So if you take a look into the toml, I just put some groups here. I moved the dependencies here, like nothing. Actually, everything that was here, I just moved it into there. Nothing specifically complex or anything, just moved it here. As you can see, still the versions are old. And what's going to be interesting when for the challenges, like as you can see, like the swipe refresh, for example, is coming from Accompanies, which is like way too old. Now Compose has its own. Or navigation, for example, navigation Compose. Or this project uses live data, for example, and we should use state flow instead. And that's going to be very interesting to see how everybody's going to approach it while maintaining the tests to work. But anyway, so what I've done is like I created this. I moved the dependencies and I created some bundles. I created a bundle for Android text, for Compose, Coin, unit tests, and UI tests. Now the unit testing and the UI testing, I made it inside the test utils. I provide them as an API so that whoever is using the test utils can directly access those, both unit testing and UI testing. And now because the app is using that for Android testing, for Android test implementation. That project, it already has access for test implementation also. And then I have these three groups like Coin, Compose, and Android text. So take a look how much simpler it is. It's like insane. I also had to add these two lines here because of the unit tests. Sorry, it's because of the UI tests. But yeah, everything else remains the same. So now the build script is so clean, both of them actually, and we have moved everything here. As you can see, yeah, so this is just API here. I just moved all the dependencies to Toml and defined the bundles, literally nothing else, and removed them from this script, you can see. So those were the changes. Now, the challenge would be the following. You can go to GitHub, find in my GitHub, find this friends repository, clone it. And the challenge is that you should update all the dependencies inside the version catalog to the latest. So both compose, navigation, this pull to refresh and everything. My suggestion, so I'm gonna also make a branch myself and I'm gonna work on it. I will record everything, how everything goes, so that we have also some data about it, but everybody should do it on their own. And so that we can compare and we can see what everybody's gonna be challenged with. My suggestion would be to update one thing at a time, but maybe that's not as easy. But like focus at one thing at a time. So for example, first update compose, then the navigation, first the navigation, then so something like that. And yeah, give it a try. Do not hesitate to try different things because you can always revert. You have Git, and I'm gonna also make one more video to actually make this announcement because this is at the end of the video. Maybe not everybody will get till this till the end. I'm gonna make separate one to announce the challenge. But yeah, this is mostly what we'll need to do. All right, if you see this video, you can already start the challenge. Just let me know in a DM. Cheers.